Parenting. How to shape a child's mind with the power of language. The words we use with children do more than instruct. They shape confidence, behavior, self-image, and the way a child learns to relate to the world. Brilliant persuasion has always shown that language is not neutral. That truth matters just as much in parenting as it does in business, leadership, or sales. When we speak to children, the effect of our language can be even more powerful because young minds are still learning how to interpret the world around them. Most parents want to guide, correct, encourage, and protect their children. Yet the manner in which this is done matters enormously. A child does not simply hear words. A child experiences the feeling behind those words. And over time, those repeated experiences shape confidence, behavior, relationships, and self-image. One of the clearest and most damaging examples is the use of the word but after praise. A parent might say, "You did well, but," or "That was good, but," intending to offer helpful correction. Yet to a child, the first part often creates a moment of happiness, only for the second part to take that feeling away. If this happens repeatedly, the child may begin to feel that approval is always conditional. The message they internalize is not simply "I can improve," but "I can never quite please mum or dad." That is the heart of the issue. This is not a small communication habit. It is a pattern of conditional approval. The child learns that warmth, praise, and acceptance are available only when they are performing correctly, pleasing the parent, or avoiding mistakes. Over time, that can quietly train the child to expect love and approval as something they must earn rather than something they can rely on. Research in psychology gives serious weight to this concern. The concept most often studied is called parental conditional regard, when warmth, approval, or affection is given more when a child behaves as the parent wants, and withdrawn when they do not. Studies by Asor, Roth, Deci, and others have found that this pattern is linked to shame, guilt, fluctuating self-esteem, resentment toward parents, and more fragile emotional well-being. More recent research and meta-analyses have also linked it to lower self-esteem, more depressive symptoms, more anxiety, and weaker relationship security later in life. That means the cost is not limited to the moment. A child raised under conditional approval may grow into an adult who is anxious, approval-seeking, self-critical, or unable to trust that others will accept them without performance. In friendships and romantic relationships, they may constantly scan for signs of disapproval. They may become people-pleasing, defensive, or habitually fault-finding themselves because they have learned that closeness is always mixed with criticism. That matters enormously. A child who repeatedly hears praise followed by disappointment may begin to expect criticism even when they are doing well. Over time, this can weaken confidence and create anxiety about making mistakes. Rather than feeling encouraged to grow, the child may feel that approval is always just out of reach. This is where language becomes so important. If the aim is to guide a child positively, the wording needs to support growth rather than undermine it. A simple adjustment can make a big difference. Instead of saying, "You did well, but," a parent might say, "That was really good, and imagine how pleased Daddy would be if you tried this next time." The child keeps the feeling of success while also hearing a constructive next step. One practical exercise is to remove the word "but" from your vocabulary for 3 days. This small discipline quickly reveals how often we instinctively use praise and then cancel it out. Seen through a parenting lens, that habit can be especially damaging because children are far more sensitive than adults to the emotional aftertaste of a sentence. It becomes a parent's behavioral reset, a simple but powerful way to support the positive development of a child. The same principle applies when a child is doing something mildly incorrect or has developed a persistent bad habit. It is very common to hear phrases like, "Don't do that," "Stop it," or "Don't open that." These are natural reactions, and every parent has used them. But when we look more closely at what a young child actually hears, the effect can be surprising. Their attention often goes to the action itself, rather than the negation. In other words, the child may fix on "do that" or "open that," while missing the negative instruction. This is why the classic pink elephant example is so useful. If someone says, "Don't think of a pink elephant," the mind must first picture the pink elephant in order to process the instruction. The same principle can apply with children. When a parent says, "Don't touch that," the child's mind is already engaged with touching it. The negative statement is far less effective than many adults assume. That does not mean parents should never set boundaries. Of course they should. Children need guidance, limits, and correction. But the delivery matters. The most effective communication often redirects, rather than merely blocks. So instead of saying, "Don't do that," a parent might say, "That's good, well done. Now show me how carefully you can do it this way instead." This keeps the child's attention on the desired behavior rather than the unwanted one. It also gives the child a path forward, which is far more useful than a blunt stop. This approach is not about being soft or permissive. It is about being effective. Children respond well to clarity, encouragement, and constructive direction. They are far more likely to repeat behavior that feels rewarding than behavior that is associated only with frustration or scolding. In that sense, parenting and brilliant persuasion share the same underlying principle. Use language deliberately. Speak in a way that helps the other person think better, feel better, and move in a better direction. For children, this is especially important because repeated language becomes part of their inner world. If they constantly hear what is wrong, what they shouldn't do, and how they have fallen short, they may begin to build a self-image based on restriction and failure. If instead they hear encouragement, guidance, and clear positive direction, they are more likely to develop confidence, cooperation, resilience, and healthier relationships later in life. The goal is not perfection in wording. No parent gets this right every time. The goal is awareness. Once we understand that language has a lasting effect, we begin to choose our words more carefully. We begin to recognize that a child's mind is learning from every repeated phrase. That is why a simple shift from "don't" to "try this instead," or from "but" to "and" can be so powerful. It changes the emotional experience of the child. It keeps the conversation open, and it helps the child feel supported rather than corrected at every turn. Brilliant persuasion reminds us that words are never just words. In parenting, they are building blocks. They shape trust, confidence, behavior, memory, and the child's future expectations of other people. Used well, they can encourage a child toward better habits and a stronger sense of self. Used carelessly, they can create a pattern of conditional approval, where praise always seems to come with a sting in the tail. Over time, that can teach a child to become cautious, approval-seeking, self-critical, or even habitually fault-finding in their own relationships. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson here. Children do not just need instruction. They need instruction delivered in a way that helps them grow into the best person they can become. For parents, brilliant persuasion is a practical and powerful guide to that process. It shows how positive communication can shape a child's emotional development, build confidence, reduce resistance, and support healthier long-term relationships. In that sense, it is not simply a book about influence, it is a guide for parents who want to communicate with greater care, awareness, and effectiveness. Short references: Asor, A, Roth, J, and Decky, E, L. Research on parental conditional regard and its emotional costs. Meta-analytic research on parental conditional regard showing links with lower self-esteem, anxiety, depression, and weaker relationship security. Self-determination theory research on contingent self-worth, introjected motivation, and the effects of conditional approval. Read Brilliant Persuasion. Most parents already know how positive communication helps their child grow with confidence, emotional strength, and develop healthy relationships. Brilliant Persuasion builds on that truth, showing how the words we choose can shape a child's development in powerful and lasting ways. Brilliant Persuasion is available on Amazon and other book platforms worldwide in multiple languages. Just Google Brilliant Persuasion by Stephen C. Young or search for it on Amazon and include your copy in your parenting toolkit.